A set of guidelines to address the disparity that often characterizes sentences handed down to convicts in the country's court has been launched, the first of its kind in West Africa. The guidelines hope to avoid a situation where a convicted armed robber may get a milder sentence than a suspect who steals a goat. Chief Justice Georgina Theodora Wood, who launched the guidelines, cautioned judges to avoid long prison terms for the youth, adding that building bigger and better prisons cannot be the solution to decongesting the prisons, but handing out minimal sentences to such young offenders.
The guidelines, the first of its kind in the country, are to ensure consistency in all courts. The Chief Justice said the sentencing in courts must reflect the level of wrongdoing.
In the not too pleasant and rather difficult task of sentencing, we are to note that the guidelines apply only in the sentencing of adults and contains the basic factors that a judge may take into account in deciding on the sentence for a given offense. It is thus intended for guidance of judges, but we should also remember that the judge's discretion, which is a critical discretionary power in justice delivery, has not been taken away, neither has it been whittled down completely.
Human rights advocates, according to her, have expressed grave concern over the treatment of both convicted and remand prisoners.
Admittedly, judges are not always to blame for what appears as unreasonable in any given circumstances. What the public might not know is that while both judges would have applied the same criminal code in adjudicating the case, other factors such as the previous convictions of the offender might have greatly influenced the choice of punishment, which we all know is entirely at the discretion of the presiding judge or magistrate.
The initiative was conducted in collaboration with the UK authorities. On his part, the Criminal Justice Advisor at the British High Commission, Roger Coventry, said judges are expected to visit the prisons regularly in order to help overhaul the prisons.
The second part is to have a principled and methodical way of setting a sentence. The guidelines start by saying sentencing is one of the most difficult parts of criminal law, and in my experience that's absolutely right. So there is a foldout from the guidelines at the front that gives a flow diagram to show the correct order, the correct procedure, the correct matters to take into account when arriving at a sentence.
The case involving the government of Ghana and Chinese firm StarTimes over the country's digital migration contract has been adjourned to March 9, 2015. Deputy Communications Minister Ato Sapong, in an exclusive interview with Joy News, said he is worried the court case is slowing the process of meeting the June 17 deadline for the migration.
The firm was tasked to supply and install the digital terrestrial television network platform for Ghana, but government says the firm failed to secure the necessary funding from the China Exim Bank to execute the project.
As at last year, 2014, we're not seeing clearly the way forward and their capacity to make available the needed funding, which is a primary resource needed for the deployment of the infrastructure. So on the basis of our analysis of the contract, the approach to the work, discussions with China Exim Bank, the correspondence here and there, we thought that as at October, November of last year, they were not in a position to deliver on the mandate. So looking at the terms of the contract, we thought that it's best for the nation to terminate and look for other options to deploy the platform.
The International Telecommunications Union has set a June 2015 deadline for all countries to migrate from analog to digital television broadcasting, and the ministry says it is working towards meeting the deadline.
Let me say that we have some form of digitization already on the ground. There are private digital terrestrial providers licensed by the NC to provide certain services. Following our decision to terminate the StarTimes contract, we engaged the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association to look at options of ensuring that at least Ghana migrates onto a platform, even if it's a temporary solution, whilst we look at building our platform. We also put up an advert looking for entities to express interest to build, and in that advert we gave a firm deadline that we want to do this within a certain time period. We got some very good responses. That whole process is currently on hold because we have to respect the court and we have to make sure that the court does its work. After that, whatever decision that they make, we will live with it.
The court case has been adjourned to 9th March 2015 for ruling. Atani, Joy News.
An Accra District Court has directed the Bureau of National Investigations to grant 8 Nigerian pirates facing charges of conspiracy to commit crime and piracy access to their lawyer. The 8 suspects, according to their lawyer Uche Nosu, have been denied access to legal counsel as well as family since their last appearance in court. The court, presided over by Justice Efua Jetua Saki, on Thursday ordered that the lawyer be granted access twice a week. Uche Nosu tells Joy News' Anil Sabote he is looking forward to have his first interaction with his clients next Tuesday.
Why not? How do I do my work if I can't have access to my clients? How am I going to do the work? You understand? So I am frustrated, but I believe that after the proceedings of today, I am confident that they will make it possible for us to overcome this breach, because the main matter is ahead. The trial hasn't started. That is the main thing. But this preliminary stage, we should be able to do things right. It doesn't speak well of the administration of justice if, howsoever it has come to be, that lawyer cannot see his client. There is no justification for it. They've not been visited by anybody. And they confirmed that much in court, that they've not even spoken to any of their relatives. The judge asked them one after the other, and they said no, although they've given telephone numbers to the investigators, but they have not spoken to any of their relatives.
The Human Rights Advocacy Center is demanding the arrest of the person or persons who leaked the video of some youth of Abavana beating a young man they suspected of being a homosexual. Albert Appiah, also known as Kinto, was nearly lynched by a mob who said he wanted to have anal sex with one Salim Abubakar, a resident of Nima. Executive Director of the center, Robert Akoto-Amoafo, believes identifying the source of the video will eventually lead to the arrest and subsequent prosecution of those who beat the young man. The delayed prosecution of the suspects by the Ghana Police Service, he says, has led to an increase in mob attacks across the country.
Of course, they have contributed to the fact that people don't trust them and people don't believe in the system. But we believe that people just also want to give justice. There are so many contributing factors to the issue of mob justice. So the police is a part of it. The society itself, which have prejudices about certain people, is part of it. We as individuals have some prejudices about certain crimes, and therefore we find that we need to mete out justice ourselves to these people. We are part of the process. We are with Kinto in court. We are in the process with the people, with the people involved. Every part of the process, we are there to ensure that justice is delivered accordingly. We will first attack the source. That is where we'll start from. Attack the source, because of course, in propagating the video, many people might have done it, and it will be difficult to stretch all of them. But if we get the source, it will break, and people will know that sending or starting a video itself would be a crime on the person. The person can sue you for defamation or putting the person into that state. Well, now the police is still investigating. We reported to the police, and the police is still finding the rest of the people involved in the whole issue of the Kinto case. And we are with the police and ensuring that they do their work.
Let's go now to Parliament. And spousal benefits under the Interstate Succession Bill 2013 appears to have divided Parliament. Now, debate on Clause 8 and 9 of the bill, which deals with the entitlement of a surviving spouse, turned emotional, forcing the Speaker to suspend the debate for further consultation on the bill. Joy News has learnt the lack of consensus on the same clause is the reason why the bill could not be passed by the previous Parliament, even though it had gone through the process.
The Intestate Succession Bill 2013 aims to remove anomalies in the present law relating to succeeding a person who dies without a will. It is also to provide a uniform succession law to be applied across the country irrespective of the system of inheritance and the type of marriage contracted. Unlike the existing law, the bill currently before Parliament seeks to give a larger portion of the deceased estate to the spouse and children. It is also to make the law more responsive to the needs of the immediate family of persons who die intestate. But Clause 8 of the bill, which recommends that half of the deceased property is given to the surviving spouse and another half of the remaining 50% where the spouse contributed financially in the acquisition of the matrimonial home, remains a sticking point.
We talk about that is 4-1. It's in respect of one house. In respect of one house. And we are saying that 50% should go to the surviving spouse. What are the children? If it is only one house, the children are not catered for anyway. Could it be that the remaining 50% should go to the children or child? We have not covered that anywhere in the law.
Where the estate comprises only one house, the surviving spouse is entitled to 50% interest in the house.
If I got 1 million cedis, because my father died, gave me 1 million cedis, and my siblings were kids, they didn't know. And I've multiplied that 1 million cedis because I got it for my father. Is this self-acquired? So, Speaker, we have to explain everything very well. I know people will get up and say, well, it's fine. But where me and you come from, where me and you, Honorable Majority Chief Whip, this definition of estate might not, Mr. Speaker, that definition is too restrictive.
The Speaker of Parliament, Edward Doe Ajaho, had no option than to suspend debate on the bill for further consideration on the clauses.
I think that listening to the majority leader and the ranking member on the committee, I think that let it go. If you have any problem, then we can look at the definition column. And if you think that we want to do some work around that area, we can do it. But I think that you know, in terms of the law, is this provision, once it is the self-acquired property, and as we said, you know, there are several legal authorities on this matter, so it will not create so much. When we go there, and we think that we need to do some work on the definition to make it clearer with regards to the definition of those areas, then we can work.
Also, Parliament today passed the Custom Bill, which will harmonize all laws relating to revenue generation.
Now to a rather sad one, a 20-month-old toddler is recovering in a hospital at Swejo in the central region after he was abducted and dumped in a pit latrine. Now the baby was suspected to have been picked up from his house as his mother was changing her clothes and left him to play with other children on the compound. In the following report, Lord Edwasari talks to the father and grandmother of the victim.
The toddler went missing Sunday after he was left in the company of other children to play while the mother was changing her clothes in the room. The victim's father, Richard Annan, was visiting the family from Accra when the incident happened.
I was in Accra to visit my wife and my child when after like 3:30 to 4. So I reached here, then I saw my wife saying, I want to see my pikin. No, I told her, I'm saying, like, I've not seen my child. And he told me, so no, now they're from church camp. Where you won't see my pikin. No, I said, no, I've not seen him. So it make that you have to search the place that pikin has passed. So now you change, or you search for him for around for like almost about 4 hours.
The toddler was later found in a latrine in the house with his feet and arms bound. The neighbor who found him in the latrine while about answering nature's call, Elizabeth Unidukufo, gives her account.
I had a nature's call. I wanted to go and bath. When I went, I put the water there and I came to the toilet. But after easing myself, I was urinating when I heard the noise, tung tung, and a feeble noise, a voice, making. So I shouted, Moses, Moses, Sir Moses, is your cat in the? Your cat is in the toilet again. Got proud to that a cat fell in the toilet. And he said, no, my cat is not in the toilet. So I called my landlady, Amelia, there's something making noise in the toilet. And so bring torch. So a lot of people came because the people, we were all looking for the boy. So they came and they put the torch inside. It was the boy, and they brought him out.
The victim's grandmother suspects foul play.
When you look under his eyes, it looks as if they have applied glue there, causing his eyes to close. It seems blood has been drawn from his thumb with syringe.
20-month-old Gerard Annan is currently on admission and responding to treatment at the Sewage Regional Hospital.
So I and this boy sent the boy to the hospital.
Okay. What did he look like? What was the state when you take him to the hospital?
Oh, my brother. This thing, how do you call it? Maggot. When you open the boy's eyes like this, you can't stand. The eye all came out. The time the doctor came in, they started removing them. Then they said they should give the boy food. So they cut, how do you call it, drip, the rubber, and they pull it inside the boy's nose. Then they started removing the maggot from his nose. Before they put tea inside the syringe and pull it back straight to the nose before the boy had something in his stomach.
Lord Harris, sorry for joining us.
Definitely depressing. You're watching Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV and also on ABN TV across Europe. We'll take a break here. Please don't go away. You're welcome back and many thanks for staying. Now, the Energy Commission says it will go to Parliament to make it mandatory for individuals and estate developers to incorporate solar panels in their buildings. The initiative, according to the Commission, has become critical due to the current energy crisis, which is crippling businesses and inconveniencing households. The Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, which was represented at the meeting, however, says realtors must be encouraged rather than compelled to deploy solar.
At a meeting with energy experts, the Commission's chairman, Dr. Kwame Ampofo, explained the initiative aims to reduce dependence on the traditional sources of electricity.
If solar energy is expensive, it is relative. The term expensive is relative. Having solar systems for lighting and not having light at all, which is more expensive.
For the ordinary consumer?
No, let's say you have a freezer, you have meat, you have so much food in it, you have everything, and there's no light at all. You compare that system, that situation, with the situation of having light from solar, you see that solar systems are okay.
Secretary to the Executive Council of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Sami Amegaibo, however, says legislation of the initiative is not the way to go.
If I have a property that costs about 100,000 and it will cost me 10,000 extra to put solar on it, it has increased the cost. The chances are that somebody who is using, for example, a mortgage financing to pay for it might be priced out, and that will mean that he cannot have access to the property. So what we need to do is to be able to use the solar energy at the same time still be able to produce the house at the same 100,000 that I used to sell now. And that will mean that certain tax elements from the component of the house has to be taken off to make way for the inclusion of the solar panel.
Some participants at the forum believe scrapping off taxes on imported solar equipment would be the best way to encourage people to buy into the concept.
Let's remove every hindrance within the solar system cases.
Which hindrances have you identified?
Like if you importing something, we don't do the solar here. So if you're importing anything solar down here, you must be given almost a concession.
Setup costs for solar panels and batteries could be anywhere from 15,000 Ghana cedis, a rather prohibitive cost for many homes interested in deploying it.
A member of pressure group Occupy Ghana, Nana Kwesi Ewua, has called off his scheduled one-man demonstration at the Energy Ministry. His protest was to demand the immediate dismissal of officials indicted in a 2013 Auditor General's report in which project funds for rural electrification was used to acquire luxury vehicles. He spoke to Emmanuel Ante.
How different is it from the NPP's demonstration?
Well, concerning the issues that we're going to demonstrate about, it was, first of all, let me say that it was a one-man demonstration in that the issues or the motivation or the rationale, the objective of that demonstration was to send a message and to make some demands concerning the profligate expenditure about the purchase of the vehicles, the luxury cars, out of the sums of money which were earmarked for rural electrification, that is extending electricity to our brothers and sisters in the villages. And out of this sum, a colossal sum of $1.8 million was used to buy luxury cars. And if you look at the audit report of the Auditor General, it is clearly indicated that that amount was not approved by Parliament, and therefore it is an illegal expenditure. And this is one of the cases, the classical cases where the Auditor General can exercise his powers of disallowance and surcharge the persons involved to refund those sums to the state. And so that was the motive behind that one-man demonstration.
Now you have called it off. What was the reason why you called it off?
The reason why I called it off was because the execution did not roll out or pan out as planned, and therefore there was the need to call it off.
Right. What do you mean by that, the execution did not pan out as planned?
That would mean I have to give you the full details of the strategy, and I can't, once I give it to you, it means I can't use it again next time. So let me keep that to myself and say that the execution did not pan out as planned. I am going to push this as far as I can to ensure that the demands which moved me to step out this morning, that is one, and these are the demands, I mean to say, all officials or public officials or persons who superintended or supervised that expenditure ought to be held accountable. Two is that all officials or persons who knowingly benefited from that expenditure ought to also be held accountable. And lastly, that the Auditor General immediately issues a notice of disallowance and surcharge on all such persons to refund the sums to the state.
When do we expect your next action?
Right now, I can't give you a definite time, but it will be soon.
Thank you very much.
I'm not resting till this matter is seen through to its logical conclusion.
Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Maslok, Mustafa Abubakar, has assured businesses seeking funding from the Microfinance and Small Loan Center that it still has enough money to support them, despite the recent 1 million Ghana cedi scandal facing the center. He spoke exclusively to Your News.
We've made our budget for this year. Starting from last year, we made our budget for this year that we're going to continue with our small loans, our microcredit loans to the market women, to the traders. We've set aside an amount of money for that. We've also set aside an amount of money for other microfinancial institutions because they apply to us for some on-lending, which we're going to give them. We have the tricycle project, which we have about 1,000 tricycles to dole out to some farmers and some people who want to go into some kind of trading. We also have the outboard motors. We are bringing some outboard motors to give to our fisher folks to assist them in their trade. And so we have outlined our activities. This is not going to affect us at all.
Director of Operations of Maslok, Ken Kwekuboediasari, allegedly forged 102 non-existing business associations to advance about 1 million Ghana cedis to two financial institutions, Ukida Microfinance Limited and Unicorn Happy Investment Limited. Deputy Chief Executive of Maslok, Mustafa Abubakar, says it is working with Yoko to retrieve the money.
We assure the general public, the taxpayer, on behalf of whom we are here, that no official of Maslok or staff would undermine or as it were, use his dealings to corrupt the system. We would make sure that we expose each and every person who feels that they are here to make money illegally. And so we want to assure the general public that we are on top of our game. We have put in place systems and checks in terms of the compliance unit, in terms of the internal audit.
Maslock, he indicates, has adequate internal controls in place to mitigate any risks posed to the center's operations, and that these controls were what ensured that the scam was unearthed and subsequently reported to Yoko. Etonamse, Joy News.
Well, the effect of the current energy crisis have been enormous, and especially so in life-saving institutions where availability of power is critical. The effect is worse there. That's only one of the challenges being surmounted by health workers at the Adan East District Hospital. In the following report, we tell you how a personal policy of a doctor is putting smiles on the faces of those who visit the hospital. The Adan East District Hospital, with its clean environs, has a very welcoming feel for its patrons, who come mainly from the surrounding cluster of communities. About 180 patients visit each day. Dr. Philip Na is the medical superintendent here. For the past 11.5 years, he has managed affairs here on his personal maxim, brighten the corner where you are. The workload is quite heavy here for doctors because of the unwillingness to accept postings to rural communities. Retention of health workers here is a difficult task, largely because of poor residential conditions. But these are just a few of the challenges the hospital face. Their main challenge is the slow pace of reimbursement of the National Health Insurance claims and consistent power outages.
If you ask them to pay, they cannot pay. In some places, they will tell you that the drugs are not there because they don't want to give it. When they give it out, whatever they are going to get from the health insurance will not be adequate. We don't do that.
Some practical steps they have adopted to conserve energy includes consistently buying fuel and getting some on standby for the hospital's generator, and consciously switching off electrical appliances such as air conditioners. But these do not diminish his passion to save lives and encourage his subordinates to follow suit in a friendly manner. Dr. Philip Na says his motivation is to make life easier for the mostly poor patients who troop into the hospital every day.
We do a lot of cesarean section. When a woman is in labor that cannot, we do a lot. We help them to go to emergencies. We don't focus so much on money as in some places they do, because the people are poor here, and maybe that is the unique thing about us.
Some of them wouldn't accept a referral from this hospital without persuasion.
They are all doing their work well. I was here since in the morning, but I'm waiting to go and see the doctor.
Anytime I come to hospital, they are good, the nurses, they are serviceable. You see them all the time busy. They even at all, if you are a newcomer and you come and you don't know where to go, they will direct you, they will lead you. You see, that's why anytime I fail to come to the hospital because of their serviceable and how they welcome the patients here.
Despite the issues, which also include lack of proper documentation for the land on which the hospital is located and the need for more doctors, Dr. Na and his team say they would rather make their patients smile in the midst of the challenges than allow the frustration to affect their delivery.
We cannot see our patients suffering. For instance, if you are not able to provide those services, do you refer these patients to go to Tema or Accra? And that place, life will be harder to them. So we try to, cope with the pressures and help them. The final thing is to make our patients a bit comfortable.
So far, no casualty has been recorded on account of power outages, but he expects the situation to improve as soon as possible, as it has been tough to manage.
We are promised that 2015 will be better. I hope those crises will also be minimized. And then we'll save a lot of money, which will go into the real job, treating the patients.
Dr. Na's example is worth emulating. Up next, we bring you business news, but much later in the bulletin, we tell you how a teacher who decided to forcibly barber the hair of final year students at a school in the Western region has incurred the wrath of parents. Stay tuned. All right, let's do some business now. And government is set to be taking steps to ensure its negotiations with the International Monetary Fund can be concluded in good time for a program to be approved by April. This involves going lengths to convince a visiting IMF delegation about measures being taken to address concerns raised by the fund on previous visits. Joy Business gathers that Cabinet has in the last few days approved some measures to be quickly implemented as part of the requirements by the IMF and donor partners. This is at the opening of what many are describing as make or break negotiations for a fund program. Now, George Rafe has been following the progress of the negotiations, and he's joined us in the studio with someone. Now, George, can you highlight some of the measures the government is putting in place to, as it were, impress the IMF?
Well, what we have gathered is that they've put in place a plan that will come up with strategies to clean up the payroll, so a drastic plan that would clear the ghost names of the payroll. That's one of the requirements that we understand that the IMF has put forward, that if you want to have a deal with us by April, or an IMF program by April, make sure that you clean the payroll, the public payroll of all the ghost names. So we understand that the Cabinet has given its approval to a plan to clean the payroll of the ghosts. Also, another concern that has been put forward is the funding of government operation by the Bank of Ghana. Under the laws, the Bank of Ghana is required not to fund more than 10% of last year's revenue. So let's just imagine that last year we were able to raise about 20 billion Ghana cedis in revenue. You don't go beyond the 10% mark. Over the few years, we've seen that the Bank of Ghana is even doing more than that. Now, Cabinet has approved a plan that will cut that down to 5% for this year and 0 for 2016, as well as a revised budget that the Finance Minister is set to present to Parliament very, very soon.
Right. Now, I'm particularly interested in how far government has come in terms of clearing the ghost names, because this has been something that they said they've been doing a very long time.
Well, yes, they've made some progress, but it's difficult now to quantify it or in terms of the percentage.
Right.
But just the fact that there's a commitment or there's a plan in place that by this year, by that year, we've been able to clear these numbers of number of people on the ghost names or on the public payroll, that is very critical for the IMF.
Let's see how that goes. But how long is this negotiation going to take?
Well, they are in town for about a week. So what the economists will say, all other things being equal, they should be able to conclude everything by next Friday.
Right. The governor of the Bank of Ghana has been sharing some higher insight on this particular. What has he been saying?
Well, at the MPC yesterday, he was asked about the status of government's commitment to this program, because earlier on, we got the understanding that government appears to be dragging its feet on this whole negotiations. Well, according to the governor, as we speak right now, all the necessary targets, measures that government is supposed to put in place for this program, it is there. And
what are they?
I mean, one is about this revised budget that should be presented.
Okay.
Two is about a detailed plan to ensure that you clean the ghost names on the public payroll. Also, a plan to cut Bank of Ghana's financing of government operations. So most of these targets are being worked on by government, a policy that will be put in place to demonstrate to our development partners when it comes to how do we minimize the impact of this declining oil prices on the economy. And we understand government has come very far with all these targets and plan, which the IMF is asking for. So you're able to present these documents to them that you ask for A, B, C, and D, and we have come this far with respect to all these programs and projects.
Right. We'll live to see how far, because we can say that we've gone how far. We've gone far, but we'd like to see exactly how far.
Another thing that the governor also spoke about was about the donor partners, their commitment. Initially, we heard that the EU and some other countries had problems with how government is committed to even managing the economy in terms of programs and all those things.
Right.
We understand that the donor partners have now given us a thumbs up in terms of what we've done so far, according to the governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Right. George Rafe there giving us some insight into what we are expecting to hear in April when the IMF, well, gets into the program that the government is seeking to get into with it. Now let's move on with some other stories. Now the Chamber of Mines says mining companies will have to lay off workers or shut down completely if their power supply continues to be unduly erratic. The Chamber says apart from losing productivity on days they are denied electricity from the national grid, they pay a lot more for their fuel than the prevailing price, thereby hiking the cost involved in fueling their power plant. The high cost, according to the chief executive of the Chamber, is really crippling the sector.
Since the start of the power rationing exercise, mining companies have had to go without power once every 3 days as their contribution to managing the available electricity. But the Chamber of Mines says the current situation will only bring about chaos.
Effectively, you are shedding off 33% of your load. It's very dire, especially for those who don't have standby generating sets. Because even if you have and you don't have that much capacity, then naturally you cannot run. If you look at the ex-ref level, the last time I checked, it's about 24% more than that for the general consumer. And then if you look at the end price, about 15% more. So already they are paying much more than the average consumer. And to think that they would be expected to run their standby genset, those who have, on diesel, extra volumes of diesel, through no fault of theirs, it's worrying, and we were hoping. We have spoken with governments, and we've not had any comfort yet. But we thought that, and this should just not be for the mining companies, but look, general industry. We are in a very serious situation in this country, and that's why I believe that if it goes on unduly, then naturally, I'm sure it will be a rational decision, companies will have to take, because they cannot continue running, such cycles for so long.
The World Bank, however, suggests it is time mining companies in Africa work closely with IPPs to meet the growing energy demands rather than building their own on-site power plants. But the mines already have an 80-megawatt plant they procured during the last energy crisis, currently being operated by the VRA. According to them, although there's a binding MOU with government that should guarantee them at least the power from their plant, they have been denied any of that.
It's actually in the mix, so it's part of what goes into the total mix of the country, and so everybody, so to speak, is getting a small pie of that.
Is it in good shape?
I think it is working. Of course, it's not generating the full 80 megawatt throttle. The last time we checked, I think it was about 50. It was running 50 megawatts, which is going to the mix. It's been a big challenge for the companies, especially those who don't have standby generators. And unfortunately, government is saying that the situation in the country is so dire. And if what is available is given to these companies, then naturally the deficit or the big hole would even be bigger.
The Chamber confirmed the commitment of mining companies to work with IPPs, but says they've had to be cautious.
I think it's about reputation and ability to deliver. In fact, that is one of the reasons why the company decided to do the MRP, because you assume that once you have an agreement with government institutions, the VRA, which has a reputation for power generation, not just hydro, but they have some experience with thermal as well, you would assume that with that kind of background, with that kind of partner, you would not have these kind of problems when you want to make a call on the agreement. But unfortunately, that is where we are. So probably the next option is to look at IPPs and see whether you'll be able to identify credible ones to work with.
The chief executive of the Chamber of Mines, Suleiman Akoni, revealed Chirano Gold Mines, for instance, is set to inaugurate a 90-megawatt thermal plant at its mining site by the end of next month after engaging independent power producer Gensa to construct the plant. Abigail Adamakunchi for Joy News.
The Minister for Trade and Industry, Dr. Ekos Pio-Gabriel, has inaugurated a 14-member committee to help implement the National Effort Export Development Program. The program, he says, aims to significantly boost the country's annual earnings from non-traditional export in the next 5 years.
The National Export Development Program is expected to transform the country's non-traditional export sector as well as enhance the capacity of institutions in the export sector. The program, funded by the Bank of Ghana and other development partners, is expected to boost export earnings within the next 5 years. Trade Minister Dr. Ekosbio Gabra, who doubles as chairman of the program steering committee, said fruits including coconut will soon be exported to the United States.
No matter how much you may disrespect a banana in this country, and some of them fall in our villages and nobody picks them up, there are countries in this world where one finger of banana can sell for $1. Just because it is a rare commodity, it's highly valued to have it on your dinner table. So if you go to the Middle East and you go to Asia and other countries which European countries, not European countries which cannot grow bananas, offers somebody a banana as a dessert. It's a very highly respectable thing to do. You go to certain parts of the United States and one coconut can sell for 5 cedis. That's 15 cedis. So if you are living near coconuts and you don't value them, when they hit the export markets, they can become a totally different product value at the retail level.
The budget for the 5-year program is said to be $600 million. The steering committee is made up of representatives from the Bank of Ghana, Federation of Ghanaian Exporters, Local Governments Ministry, Association of Ghanaian Industry, Food and Agriculture Ministry, and the Ghana Export Promotion Council.
Well, hello there. Time for sports now. We begin with news from the Ghana Beach Soccer Association. And the national beach soccer team is in dire need of at least $52,000 to enable them honor an invitation to the 2015 Elite Powerhouse Beach Soccer Tournament, which kicks off in South Africa next month. Although sponsors Carl Bank is giving $20,000 to the team as yearly sponsorship, an additional $52,000 is needed to secure the total package for players, officials, local camping preparations and air tickets. Yao Ampofuankra is president of Ghana Beach Soccer and has been speaking to Joy Sports.
Sure, we move from Accra to Johannesburg to Durban, and that means that our flights, we need to get our tickets, and also to prepare. Camping here in Ghana would help us, you know, to be ready. So when we get there, I think we'll play the match on the following day. So getting the sponsorship for the tickets for the team is our priority right now. Sponsorship has always been a difficult problem in Ghana. I mean, in every aspect that you can think about. But I thought you had Carl Bank. To be fair, Carl Bank came on board beach soccer in 2011 when we started the league. In fact, it's the only double-tier league in or two-tier league in Africa. We have Division 1 and we have Championship. So it comes up, and I've tried to, you know, keep away from the issue of direct comparison. Find the Black Stars. You cannot compare the Black Stars to the Black Stars. Yes, and also to other national teams. But I think the mistake we're doing is that perhaps we're not planning ahead and sharing that national sporting cake equally. So you find a lot of sports are suffering because of what some would say is a very, very minimum, you know, amounts of money. Exactly.
4 years ago, a terrible accident left a little girl unable to walk. The unfortunate accident also meant that the toddler's education was threatened. Now, she needed 2 surgeries to save her left leg. Thankfully, though it's taken a few years, Iman Yusuf will be walking soon, courtesy the benevolence of the Orthopedic Training Center at Adwedri Sawam.
10-year-old Iman Yusuf is off to see a physiotherapist. The physiotherapist will examine Iman to see when she can get an artificial leg.
We was buying something tough, then I did not see the car. We was many, only me that the car hit me. So they took me to the for noche. So my mother was crying, but I don't feel pain.
For over a month, Iman has called the Orthopedic Training Center in Nsawam her home. This is the second time she has been admitted since she lost her left leg in September 2011 in a car accident. According to the physiotherapist Rachel Odro, young children like Iman and their parents are taking through a lot of counseling to give them hope.
We realize that both the child and the mother or father are all depressed. Most of them are depressed, not knowing how the future is going to be for them and also for the child. For the very young ones, for the very young children, sometimes they don't really know what is happening to them. But the parents' frustration and depression has effect on these kids. So when they come in here, we have a big work to do. As in, we have to make sure the parents are okay. We tell them there is hope and that this and that are what we can do for the child.
Iman, like many of her peers at the orthopedic center, are taught how to use their new legs.
We do a lot. It's not just about giving them the artificial legs, making sure they walk, no. Even for them to accept it, to accept that prosthesis or orthosis you give them, you would have to make them understand the situation and accept. Else, it affects them, they don't walk well, they still have the leg but they still look depressed, they are not happy, they can't get close to their friends, and that's not what we want.
Currently, Iman's education is on hold so she can focus on her recovery. This does not mean she is not studying. The center has provided a place to help her maintain her interest in going to school. She admits missing her family, friends and teachers who are all in Kumasi where she lives. Iman is hopeful she will soon be fitted with an artificial leg after months of therapy.
We are hoping to fit her artificial leg this week. Since she's already used it before, we are hopeful that in less than a month she should be done.
Cute smile there. A male teacher at Adiemra Senior High School at Secondary in the Western Region has incurred the wrath of some parents whose wards are in the school after he forcibly shaved the hair of several final year students. Now, the haircut, described as depunking, was forced on the students in the middle of their mock exam last Monday. Western Regional correspondent William Benjamin Peters filed this report.
To say the teacher, known as Segati, a business tutor, stormed the exams hall and announced to the students during the mock exams that he was going to depunk the hair of all those who had allowed their hair to grow beyond the prescribed limit. He then followed through his threats with a pair of scissors he had on him. This led to a confrontation with a section of the students, with those resisting ordered to leave the exams hall. According to Alice Dixon, one of the affected students, some of her colleagues were forced to abandon the mock exams.
He just asked us that those who wouldn't allow him to depunk them, and you think you can't stay in there, you can go out. So some of them went out.
Her father, Nana Beyin Dixon, says two of Alice's siblings were also affected. He swore to take on the school authorities.
When they came home, then they informed me, they showed me what that teacher did to them. Okay. Honestly, I didn't find it easy as a parent in containing it. So I choose to go to the school myself and verify what actually happened that resulted in this mess which their teacher has done to my kids.
The assistant headmaster has refused to comment on the matter, referring Joy News to the headmaster, who had also been unavailable.
Well, before we go, a report from the Gambia say President John Mahama has been telling the Ghanaian community there that Wednesday's Wongbuk demonstration has encouraged him to work harder to end the power crisis. The president, who visited that country, is said to have told the Ghanaian community yesterday that there was demonstration about power crisis in Ghana, and I feel very encouraged to do everything possible to end this problem, unquote. The comment attributed to President Mahama is attributed to President Mahama on City FM Online. It is in sharp contrast to the rhetoric from government officials and the persons within the National Democratic Congress. Well, that ends our bulletin for today. Let's take a look again at our top stories. Chief Justice launches guidelines to address disparities in the sentencing of convicts and situations where notorious convicts rather get milder sentences compared to first offenders. Energy Commission moves to get Parliament to compel real estate developers to install solar energy generators in the homes they build. Controversial clause seeking to ensure surviving spouses in the event of the interstate death of their partners get at least half of their property holds up passage of interstate succession law. And government says Ghana may not be able to meet the June 17 deadline for migrating the country's television broadcast signals from analog to digital due to a court case on the process. In business, Cabinet approves measures to ensure Ghana is able to secure a program with the International Monetary Fund by April. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com and multitvworld.com. My name is Gifty, and Doapia and I tweet at JNewsGifty. You can follow me. Up next is PM Express with Nana Sakwa. Many thanks for your time.
This is Joy News Prime.